Today we're testing the brand new Narwal Freo Z10. Now it's a near flagship robot, but at a more affordable price point. Now in the last couple of years, Narwal has made some huge improvements to their lineup, which makes them competitive with the very best of the best. The Freo Z has 15,000 pascals of suction. It also has a unique anti-tangle system with 2 side brushes and a center brush roll. We'll get into that in just a minute. It vacuums and mops, and it has a fully featured base station and an introductory price which seems to avoid the incoming tariffs. More on that later. So we're gonna run our battery of 20 different tests, and we're gonna show you things that you probably aren't gonna see on other channels. We're gonna show you the good and the bad. Now Narwal sent us a demo unit to test, but that's all. They haven't sent us any money, and they have no say in the final edit of this video. So let's start with our hardwood pickup test. Now we're giving a maximum score of 5 points for each of our tests, except the hardwood pickup, because we think that's really important, so we're giving it 10. And I'm gonna share the scoring as we go along so you can keep track. We dumped 20 grams of sand on hardwood to see how much it picks up. In the hardwood pickup test, it scored 100%, so that is 10 points. For the carpet pickup test, we're again sprinkling 20 grams of sand. First, we're gonna do it with just sprinkling it on the carpet. So it just picked up 93% on the carpet pickup. That's one of the best scores I've ever seen for a robot vacuum. So that's 5 points. For the second test, we're gonna grind it in with our special grinding in slipper. Again, we're gonna set it to maximum suction and 3 passes. Ground in pickup performance is the highest of any robot vacuum I've actually tested so far. It picked up 86%. The average flagship robot picks up around 80%. So that's a really good job. So that's another 5 points. We're gonna do our detangle test in a second with some real world hair, but I wanna show you the Narwal detangle system with this brush roll design. So the central brush roll is conical. It's only attached at this end over here. And you can see you've got these alternating rubber fins and bristles. So what happens, the idea is that the hair moves down towards here and ends up inside the body of the vacuum. Then you've got 2 separate side brushes now for the first time. And what they do is normally when they're spinning, they're gonna be out like this. You're gonna be spinning around, and a lot of other robot vacuums can actually get tangles on these side brushes. But what happens is these sort of go together like this, and then it rotates in, and actually the hair gets sucked into the central brush roll. So it worked really well on the last Narwal that I tested. We're gonna try it again. We've got some long 8-inch hair, and then we got some 6-inch hair. It might be a little bit too much, so we're gonna let it run anyhow, and then we're gonna check the brush for tangles. Okay, no edits. I haven't done anything here. We're just gonna take a look. You can see these brushes are pointed in. Looks really good. And these side brushes, I don't see any tangles on this side or that side. For long hair pickup, that's a 5 out of 5. Let's try it with some pet hair. My cat has brought me a spring. He loves to play fetch. And he leaves cat hair everywhere. Once again, you saw me just stop the robot mid-process. No tangles in the side brushes. Another 5 out of 5. Narwal has really got their anti-tangle game down. Typically, our corner pickup test does not involve a fat cat, but today it does. But what we're really trying to do is gauge how effectively a robot is at getting rice, which is basically our substitute for dirt, out of a corner, along with some pet hair. On the first pass, it left 3 grains of rice. On the second pass, it left a couple grains of rice, so I've tried it a couple different times. It's not as effective as the robots with the extending brush arm to the side, but overall I think it's doing a pretty good job, so it gets a 3 out of 5. You might be wondering why I'm holding this. It's so that we can test mopping performance. Now, what we're gonna do first is I'm gonna clean the floor and make sure it's totally clean. Then we're gonna test it twice. First, we're gonna test it with just a regular setting, maximum water. Then, we're gonna try it with its smart AI setting. Just finished the first pass, Now there's a limitation, I think, with how effective spinning mop pads can be. This is what the paper towel looks like. I think that's okay. It's pretty average. This is what the pads look like after that first pass. We're gonna send it back to the base station. We're gonna check how clean the pads are. I'll talk about the base station in just a minute. I'm gonna give normal mopping performance a 2.5 out of 5. Let's try it with the AI mode. It just went back to the base station after a single pass, which means I don't think it actually detected the spill. That seems pretty par for the course with, I think, just about every robot vacuum except one. And we're gonna give this also a 2.5 out of 5. Our corner mopping test is a real challenge because it's difficult for a round mopping pad to get into a square corner. So let's see how this does. Look, corner mopping is a pretty difficult test, and the Narwal has done better than even the more expensive robots, so I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 5. The 10Z has an interesting approach to mopping that I think is new to Narwal. Now, what is not new is these triangular style pads. They're magnetic, they pop out like this. You can pull these off and you can clean them if you need to. But what I believe is new is the fact that this one side can actually swing outwards and get up to along the baseboards. And it has something called robo swing that's supposed to apply 8 newtons of downward force on the floor and actually swing the robot from side to side as it goes along the baseboard. But it did a very good job with edge mopping. The arm came out right up to the baseboard and it does the swing thing that seemed to work pretty well. I think it's pretty effective and definitely more effective than some other less expensive robots. So that gets a 5 out of 5 for edge mopping. Our hardwood edge pickup test is designed to see how good a job a robot vacuum will do vacuuming up little bits of rice along your baseboard. So we've got 20 grains of rice. The Freo Z10 was pretty effective, picked up all the rice. It did shoot some of it back out to the middle of the floor, but because we did a couple of passes away from the baseboards, it actually picked up everything, so it gets a 5 out of 5. The carpet edge pickup test is very challenging, and there is no robot yet that has managed to pass this test and actually pick up debris along the edge of the carpet. And just like every other robot that we tested, for some reason the Z10 does not clean to the baseboard when it is on carpet, but there's no other manufacturer that's got it down yet, at least not in our testing. 0 out of 5. Our bumping test is designed to evaluate how well a robot vacuum does with chair legs, table legs. If you have expensive furniture, you might want to take this into consideration. Despite the fact that it has no camera, it actually seems to be very good and very careful with bumping. It is not bumping into the table legs much at all. It is touching them very gently on occasion. But I think if you have nice furniture, I think you're going to be pretty safe. Also, you can see the mop gets right in by those table legs. A perfect score would be that it never touched the table legs, but it did slightly, so it gets a 4 out of 5. Very good for a robot with no camera. Behind me is our obstacle avoidance test, and this test generally separates robots that have a camera from those that don't. Ones that don't have a camera tend to run over things. The Freo Z doesn't have a camera, and it's done extremely well to this point. Let's see how it does in this test. The Freo Z10 has 3 different sensors. It has a spinning LiDAR system on top for 360-degree coverage of your room. It has another laser sensor on the side to detect objects that are to the side of it. And it also has a front-mounted LiDAR sensor, which is able to see objects as small as 1 centimeter high. We got a shoe with its shoelaces untied. We got some fake pet poop and a sock. Ooh, it ran over the fake pet poop. Had no trouble with the sock. Does touch the shoelaces, but it sees the shoe. Let's break down what happened and the score. It had no trouble with the sock because its front-mounted laser is able to see objects as small as 1 centimeter high. It did pretty good with the shoe. It can actually see most of the shoe, but without a camera, I don't think any robot is gonna see shoelaces. So that's kind of expected. And this is going to be a challenge for any robot without a camera because this is probably a bit less than 1 centimeter high. When it ran over and it flipped it over, I think it saw it the last time because that's probably a little bit higher than 1 centimeter. So again, a big challenge. If you have pets that are young or not trained, consider a robot with a camera. I do spend a lot of time showing you the obstacle avoidance test results because I think that's something that you probably want to know depending on the type of house that you have. So I'm giving this a 2 out of 5, but that's actually a very good score for a robot without a camera, one of the best I've seen yet. But we're not done. Let me talk about how it does in the real world of my house. In our real world obstacle test, it struggled a little bit with doormats and also food pet areas. Now, to be fair, very few robots actually do well in these tests, so I just simply recommend that you set these as no-go zones. If it's really important to you, I would recommend a robot with a camera. So it scored a 2 out of 5. The base station has all the high-end features that you might expect on a flagship robot. So first of all, you got a dust bag that can hold up to 120 days. You do get a cleaning solution, and I talked with Narwal to ask them exactly how this works. This does clean the actual mop pads. When it wets the mop pads, it puts solution on them too, so it actually does use it to mop your floor. Of course, you've got a clean water tank, you got a dirty water tank, and what this also has is a couple of buttons on top here too. So if you don't have your phone, you can just tell it to go home, you can tell it to continue, and you can tell it to wash the mop. So when it's washing the mop pads, it can use water anywhere from 113 to 140 degrees, depending on the type of dirt that it finds. Higher, I think, is for more dirty. And then the dust bag, it'll actually run a little bit of hot air through the dust bag to make sure it doesn't build up any odors. After it's washed the mop pads, it's going to dry them with 104-degree hot air. And that should reduce or eliminate odors. In terms of maintenance that you have to do, there's really not a whole lot. The base plate comes out, so you can wash it, you can take care of it whenever you want. And after all the soy sauce, we sent the robot back to the base station to wash the mop pads, and they look pretty clean to me. If you do need to do some additional washing, you can just peel them off and wash them in your sink. So all in all, this should be a very simple base station to maintain. It does not require a lot of intervention. The performance of the base station is a 5 out of 5. For mop cleaning, we're going to give it a 5. The Freo Z10 is one of the very quietest robots that you can buy right now. When it's mopping and vacuuming in normal mode, it's about 55 decibels at 6 feet. When it's washing the mop at the base station, it's about 58 decibels. When it's drying it, it's 48. You can't really hear it. And the loudest it ever gets is dust collection at about 74 decibels. This is a robot that you can definitely use while you're working at home. 5 out of 5. Let's look at the Narwal app. Get the same app for all of the robots. When you first enter, you're going to end up on the default floor. Now you do have multiple floor map management, so I've got 2 floors set up here. You can have up to 4. You can choose from different map styles. I've got it in color mode right now. You've also got a 3D map, which you can move around, and a monochromatic map. The biggest issue that I have with this app is you can't really see the furniture very easily. For example, this is the room we're in right now, and it doesn't really show where the sofas are, it doesn't really show where the tables are, it just shows where the carpet is. And that makes it a little bit difficult to use if you're doing a zone cleaning. You've got lots of options in terms of vacuum and mop, vacuum then mop, etc. Mopping mode also has similar types of adjustments. You can choose how many times it's going to do a pass, mopping humidity, and coverage. Now you can also choose Freo Mind, which is their AI mode, and it's going to clean your room and adjust depending on the type of dirt that it finds there. The biggest issue I have with the app is that some of the things you want to do are a little bit buried. Let's say I want to set up a no-go zone. So what do? I can hit this map, I can do map management, and that allows you to change between the maps. So you have to find a setting right here, which is map editing, which is kind of not that obvious, and then you can add things like no-go zones, which takes you to another page, and then you can add a no-go zone. You can also control the base station. You can tell it to collect the dust, you can tell it to wash the mop, or start mop drying. The biggest issue I have with this app is that while it's functional, it is kind of hard to find things, so I'm going to give it a 3 out of 5. Let's break down the final score. So the Narwal Freo Z10 scored 78 out of a possible 100 points. That is really good, and there's really just 2 areas that it wasn't as good as the flagships. So let's get into the scoring. It got 10 points in the hardwood pickup, and it did better than I expected in the carpet pickup test. In fact, as good or better than some of the flagships. And this is a very good robot if you have hair on your floor, pet hair, human hair. It is superb in anti-tangle, right up there with the very best. It did great in corner pickup performance, and mopping performance was as good as any other robot that has rotating mop pads. Like every other robot except for one, I think it failed the AI test, so it got the soy sauce off the floor, got most of it, but it didn't come back to remop it. That's a common thing, and I think you're really only gonna see that kind of performance perfected in the most high-end robots. The base station is really good, it's powerful, edge pickup is good, edge mopping is really good. It's very good with bumping. Really, the only places where I think it is not as good as the most expensive flagships are two. It's the app is just not as easy to use as it could be, but mainly it's obstacle avoidance. If you don't have a camera, which costs a lot more money, you're just not gonna have as good obstacle avoidance. So my recommendation is put away your power cords and mark off your no-go zones. So in my opinion, you're getting pretty much all of the high-end flagship robot performance, but without the price. I'm launching a newsletter with all the best vacuum specials at vacuumnerds.com. Go ahead, join that, and click this video right here for more great reviews.